general law city. Sandy?
I didn't know you were going to assign. Yes, as a matter of fact, certain things can be outsourced, certain things not. There are some, well, actually anything can be outsourced, however, certain things can only be outsourced to other public type providers. An example of outsourcing would be the golf course. Currently we have a private contractor who maintains the golf course, assigns the tee times and so forth. That's been the case since the early 1990s. Now that was a process that took quite some time. First we did studies that was looking at other private golf courses or privately operated public golf courses. We looked at how they were maintained, the level of maintenance, the level of satisfaction with the players, and there was a lot of study that went into that. And then after that, there was a time of investigating different providers, and it was a very lengthy process. And in the end, we managed to have jobs preserved for anybody who was at the golf course who either we could find a spot in Costa Mesa because it was a very lengthy process. They were able, through attrition in other functions, were able to find spots as city employees, and some of them chose to work for the contractor. So the city does contract out many items, and there are things that could be contracted out in addition. Further, the city could contract out. Currently, we are contracting with Huntington Beach for helicopter service. So one could contract with private entities, and there are certain services that we could only contract with a public entity. But we do have the ability to contract out. There are some cities in South County that contract out nearly all of their services to either the county or one of the adjoining cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, a quick question. Joy has a question. We will be posting the slides on our website and Facebook, etc. Okay? From Judy Lindsay. Could being a charter city affect federal or other grant monies only available to municipalities? Please stand up. Reggie, you want? Oh, Sandy? Okay, again.
Oh, I did it again?
Yeah, please stand.
When you use federal money for anything, you are required to pay prevailing wage. So any project that involved any federal money would have to pay prevailing wages for all those who were working on that. And that's a contractor wage that Reggie could probably explain better than I could. But if you don't, you will not get your federal money. And there are certain other constraints if you have a project that uses federal money in terms of equal opportunity, although you'd probably be in trouble on that anyway. Thank you. Or do you want to explain a little bit about prevailing wage?
Prevailing wage has gotten demonized in this whole charter debate, not just in this city, but in many other cities. To understand it, we need to go back to the Great Depression. And any of you who had parents or grandparents who lived through the Great Depression, my parents lived through the Great Depression, you find out that you had families traveling the country looking for any work they could to feed themselves. So you had men looking for work, often construction work at the time, and they would come in, take the money out of the local community, and then take it back home to their families. The idea of prevailing wage was set up under the Davis-Bacon Act with the principle of pay people in the local community enough money so they can actually live in their local community and carry out a construction trade. The idea of prevailing wage is that those tax dollars that you guys paid through buying cars and your real estate taxes and your sales taxes get used to hire your friends and neighbors and brother-in-law, and then he or she can go and buy a car and buy a house and live next to you. They're not, it discourages people from going around the country looking for work. Prevailing wage is set by, there's a certain statutory way it's set. The rate, they do surveys of different people in the community for what they pay for various job classifications. You also need to be aware, most people who haven't worked in construction, who had friends and relatives who worked in construction, don't understand this. Professional construction workers spend anywhere from 2 to 6 years learning their trade. And that's a full-time thing that they're doing. That's the equivalent of an associate's degree to beyond a bachelor's degree, learning how to do their work. So that when they show up at the job site, they just show up with their tools, and they're handed their plans for the day, and they go do their job, and they do it right, and they know how to inspect their own work. You know, it's really unrealistic to expect someone who has spent 4 years learning how to do a very complicated trade to be paid minimum wage like the kid delivering pizzas. And anyone who has said, yes, honey, I'll go change out that toilet for you this weekend, or, yeah, I'll put in that ceiling fan for you, and then realizes come Sunday, I got a problem and I need to call someone, has an idea of how tricky some of those trades can be. So if you want, more information on that, there's a lot more. That's the short story. But we're protecting jobs, we're paying people to live in our community, and these are well-trained people who need to be respected. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, there is a printout of Reggie's information on the side.
I'm Judy Lindsay, and that was my question.
Yes.
And it wasn't
follow
exactly my question.
Okay.
Can you get it?
Yeah.
Prevailing wage, I hadn't thought about that. My question had to do with, I've been reading lately about the CDBG grant, for instance, which is distributed to nonprofits. Those are federal monies. What happens if we're a charter city and not a municipality? Are there some federal guidelines that would affect those monies? That was my question. Maybe just make it clear. I'm sorry.
That shouldn't be affected, provided we do observe all federal laws as far as contracting and use of the funds. LA is a charter city. They're probably one of the largest recipients of community development block grant money in the state. Santa Ana is charter city, and they also get community development block grant money. The only problem would be is if actions of the city happen to create a conflict with the federal laws governing the grant.
Thank you. Okay, now, again, I want people to understand this is a fair and open forum, so I'm going to ask this question. It's about pensions, and Eleanor Perry, I think one of you